Do you believe me now?
I don't know what I believe anymore.
H.P. Lovecraft wrote a short story called The Color Out of Space. Director Richard Stanley turned H.P. Lovecraft's Color Out of Space story into a movie. I haven't read any of H.P. Lovecraft's work. I'm not a fan of Lovecraft because I'm not familiar with any of his work. How did I find out about this movie? I went on to Google, I typed in upcoming movies in 2020 on the search engine, and then I just clicked on the first link that intrigued me. As I was scrolling down the list of upcoming movies, I stumbled upon this movie. The poster was the first thing that caught my curiosity. I watched the trailer for this movie, and in the words of Calvin Candy, played by Leonardo DiCaprio in Django Unchained,
"You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention."
The best way I can describe this movie is for you to picture the visuals of Alex Garland's Annihilation having sex with the fantasy vibe of Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind, then mixing in some family dynamics from Tobe Hooper's 1982 film Poltergeist, then sprinkling in some body horror elements from Clive Barker's Hellraiser. Stir all of that together, and now you have a concoction that is one big-ass orgy of different genres attacking your senses. The Levana character is a Wiccan. At the very beginning of this movie, we're introduced to a little bit of this fantasy element with the daughter, and she's performing a ritual because her mother is suffering from cancer. It's illustrated at the very beginning. She wants to heal her mother by using her witchcraft, the Wiccan tradition. Nathan Gardner is played by Nicolas Cage, and Nicolas Cage is a very notable actor. He's been acting for years. Every time I hear the name Nicolas Cage or see his face, I'm thinking, woo, the wild crazy man. And in this movie, I will say that Nicolas Cage delivers a very subdued performance. Nicolas Cage, when I think about him as an actor, I think he's great. You watch him in The Weatherman. You watch him in Lord of War. You watch him in Leaving Las Vegas. Those three movies I just mentioned, he gives fantastic performances. And even in that movie, the recent movie that he did called Mandy, he gives a very subdued performance in that as well. And in this, he does that at the beginning, and then once shit starts to go crazy and everyone's hallucinating, he goes on his woo spree towards the end, but it is warranted. The mother in this movie, her character name is Teresa. We see her, she's a loving mother, she's suffering from this disease, and she hasn't had sex with her husband, and she's trying to rekindle her relationship with him, and she loves her son, and she's just a basic regular mom who does her at-home duties, and on top of that, she's a workaholic. She works nonstop. And even in the times of crisis, when everyone's freaking out, she's just freaking out about work and my clients and all this stuff. So we see some character with her interacting with her family and then her going about her daily life. And then there is an accident that happens with her because everyone's starting to, freak out. And, towards the end, it's very heartbreaking with what happens with her character. So I feel like the director and the story and all that combined and the acting illustrated a character that I cared about towards the end. The Jack character is a little boy, and he wears glasses. I don't think the story or the director give this character much illustration. All we know about him is that he's a boy, and he loves his mother, and he's friends with the dog Sam, and towards the end, once everyone starts going crazy, he hears voices coming out of the well. And how I mentioned the poltergeist thing earlier, we see some stuff happening with the TV and these these messages that come through, and sometimes you see visual images in there. And he doesn't interact with the TV or anything, but just seeing that and then seeing the boy having his crazy moments, talking to the well or thinking he's hearing voices, and then seeing the stuff with the TV and the images and all that coming into play when the boy's in the room. All those moments were very nice, and I do feel like we got just enough information about this character for me to care about him towards the end. We have Sam the dog in this movie, and Sam the dog is a cute dog that has its own cute, unique personality. We don't get much illustration with the dog, just like the kid, the little boy, but we get enough illustration to when something happens later on with the dog, it truly hits me emotionally. We have another character named Ward, and Ward is a hydrologist. He is looking over the water table because the mayor wants to build a hydroelectric dam that is going to strengthen Arkham. This is called Arkham. When I think of that, it reminds me of Batman and Arkham Asylum and the Arkham games. Why it's called Arkham, I don't know. But the mayor wants to build a hydroelectric water dam so they can strengthen Arkham's water supply. But Ward, who is a hydrologist, discovers that there is something that's in the water that should not be there. Benny is the older brother of Jack and the son to Teresa and Nathan. He's also a pothead, and he makes a lot of stupid decisions in the movie, and that's pretty much it. Ezra, who is played by Tommy Chong, I haven't seen him in a movie in a long time, but it was great to see him here. He plays the typical stoner who has all of these theories about what's going on, and in this case,
he may not be as crazy as he sounds.
Overall, my verdict for this movie is it's great. This is a great movie. I enjoyed the cast of characters in this movie. I enjoyed the family dynamic here, even though I feel like we didn't get a whole lot of illustration with some of these characters like Jack, Sam the dog, and Benny. We got more illustration with Nicolas Cage's character Nathan and his wife Teresa and the young daughter. All of that stuff combined made for a pretty interesting family dynamic. When they started to go crazy, I felt the emotion behind it. The visual aspect of this movie is mwah. It's absolutely flawless. The CGI in here, you can tell it's a bit fakey, but the director doesn't hold on for too long. The camera doesn't focus on that too much. You see it really quickly, and then he cuts to something else. So it's effective in delivering the story. You got the actors in here delivering great performances. Nicolas Cage, he contains his craziness until the very end, but it's warranted. It makes sense because of all of the chaotic, weird shit that's happening. There are certain elements of the story that I felt were glossed over, like the son Jack at the beginning. I didn't even know they had a son until they kind of briefly mention it, and then as the story starts progressing, we do see some stuff going on with the son Jack, and then some stuff with the dog Sam. So some stuff happens later on at the end that affects me. So I was connected to the family with this minimal story development as we got with some of them. And the son Benny, he's just a pothead and he does stupid things. A lot of the characters in this movie, especially Benny, make some stupid decisions where it's like, okay, they just set this up so this character could die, where they could have easily gotten out of that situation by not doing the stupid thing, not making the stupid decision. But we all make stupid decisions. I make stupid decisions. I don't know if I would have done what Benny did, but I guess he didn't know, so whatever. But yeah, some characters make stupid decisions. some of the story illustration in here, like with the electrohydric dam, I don't think was illustrated very clearly here. It's kind of glossed over. Like, you got Ward coming in, who is the hydrologist. He comes in here and he does his investigation, but then it doesn't seem like there's a big concern about it. Like, the movie mostly stays at the farmhouse or at the countryside house. We're mostly stuck there. And we only get a glimpse of the city when they go to the hospital later on. And so I like the fact that it's just stuck at this one location, so you feel this sense of isolation there, and the fact that they can't escape, clearly. And so I'm wondering what's going on. I feel this isolation. I feel the characters and them going on their fantasy quest, and they make dumb decisions that I'm like, easily could have got out of that. But the visual elements drive it home, where I'm like amazed by this. And then the body horror stuff is very grotesque. It had me moving, squirming around in my seat. It was very disturbing to watch. There was emotional depth in this. I enjoyed this movie. I had a lot of fun with this movie. This movie has comedy in it. It has horror in it. It has fantasy in it. It has a sense of adventure to it. It has some family dynamics in there. So it pretty much has a taste of almost every genre. There's a little love story in there, but I don't really care about it. The mystery is you don't know what's going on here. If you don't know anything about the story, like myself, it could be aliens. Is it the witchcraft that is making all of this stuff happen? But then the meteorite came from outer space, so it could be aliens. But then, the Wicca stuff, is that having some sort of effect on everything? I don't know, but that was fascinating to me. This is a depressing movie. This isn't what you think it's going to be. It isn't it does have some fun moments in there, but it turns really fucking dark. The body horror in this movie, that moment where we see the wife and the son merge, holy shit, that had me going. That made me squirm around in my seat. You can tell that they were suffering and they were in pain. Like, I especially felt bad for the little boy. Like I said, they don't give us a whole lot of illustration with the boy. He's just there, and then he starts to go crazy because this thing, whatever this color is, it's in the water and it's affecting people who drink it. So it kind of reminded me of the Cabin Fever movie. When you drink the water, you get this poison that is unleashed inside of you. And so that's kind of what happens here. People start hallucinating. Nicolas Cage drinks the water. He goes crazy. He's scratching, has this rash that is mutating his skin. And it's kind of like Annihilation too, because we see this color come in and it's mutating all of the wildlife and all of the creatures. So it's visually appealing. So then you're like, it's aliens, because the meteor comes down and it's affecting the earth and the land. And then you feel this isolation because Nicolas Cage even illustrates, yeah, this is the dream. We're living the dream. We think the dream is moving out to the countryside where a hospital is an hour away from us. No, that's not the best idea. So then you feel that sense of isolation because the story illustrates exactly what kind of circumstances we're dealing with here. But then I'm thinking maybe it's the Wicca thing, because at the beginning, the girl is performing the witchcraft, trying to heal her mother from cancer. And then that's when all of this shit happens. The meteor comes down, this color explodes. And then at the end, she does this thing and this vortex comes out of the well. And then I'm like, is it hell? Is it aliens? What is it? I don't know. But it's crazy and it's killing everyone and it annihilates her. And visually, it's great, and like I said, we see the creatures in here, the trees come alive, all this stuff. We see this merge of different animals coming together, which is gross. It reminds me of Hellraiser. But yeah, when the boy and the mother joined together, I said to myself, if I was the husband in that situation, I would just put her out of her misery. I would blow her brains out. I'd blow my son's brains out, and as soon as he decided to make that decision, I was like, I think that's the right thing to do, because I think the director captured their suffering, because you hear them moaning and then you see the visual image of the boy like stuck to the mother's back. you can just tell they're suffering. It made me grip my chest and just, it grossed me out, and it made me feel sympathy for them, and it made me just say to myself, just put them out of their misery. So the horror in this was super effective. I have not seen a horror movie like this that made me feel this tense since Jordan Peele's Get Out. So this is effective in the horror in that way. This is the best horror movie I've seen in a long time since Jordan Peele's Get Out. That affected me, on an emotional level, and it was tense. It was very, very tense towards the end. This is a slow burning movie. It's a slow build. At the beginning, it illustrates what's going on, who these characters are. It establishes everything. It takes a while to get going, but then once the shit hits the fan, it goes at 100 miles an hour, and it's just this gross shit. People are being taken out. There's this time vortex thing. This crazy bananas, And the characters, some of the characters do make dumb decisions, like I said. The boy, Danny, he hears the dog, or he thinks he hears the dog, but that's like in Annihilation, they think they hear voices, and in this, the color, I guess, can mimic other people's sounds, people that you love, and he thinks he hears the dog in the well, and he goes in there to try and save it, but then clearly there's no dog in there, and then he gets killed by the color, and it's like, okay, dude, you should have known that was going to happen. There's no way you're getting out of that well. So I'm just saying, like, dumb decisions like that. And then Nicolas Cage, he goes off the deep end by the end and locks his daughter in the attic with his wife, who is now a fully formed mutated monster merged with her son. And I don't know, it's kind of weird because he locks his daughter in there. But then it ends very quickly when the sheriff and the Ward characters show up. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Nicolas Cage just shoots his wife and he shoots his son. And I'm like, you should have did that a long time ago. So I felt like that was it's just kind of weird how that was executed. It's like, I'm not going to do it, and then he does it later on. But yeah, the horror elements in this movie really worked, along with the visuals and the performances. I felt the intensity of it all. It just had me going. From the very middle portion, when the horror started going down, to the very end, it had me. I was going. This is directed kind of like a Steven Spielberg adventure fantasy horror movie. It has all those elements in it: comedy, horror, suspense. It builds tension. There are a couple jump scares in here, but I feel like it's warranted because of the intensity of it all. And then the musical score in here is haunting. It sucks me into the atmosphere and the mood of this movie. So all of the elements in this movie are they work to perfection. The acting, the visuals, the directing, the story, its execution, the horror, the tense, the emotion of it, the body horror, all of it. It just makes for an emotional roller coaster ride. And for me, this is the beginning of the year 2020, and this movie, Color Out of Space, I'm going to put on my top 10 list before the end of this year, unless there are 10 movies that knock it out of the list. But for right now, this is my favorite movie of the year. It's a depressing movie because everybody dies, except for Ward. At the end, he does his narration, and then it looks like as he's walking off screen, he's like, I'll never drink the water. And it looks like as he's walking off screen, he collapses because he hasn't. It looks like he collapses. I don't know. But it's depressing because if it is aliens, the aliens have taken over the world and they've won. Some survivors, they're still around, but mostly everybody dies. All the main characters die. So it's very depressing. It's not a happy ending, which I like movies like that. I don't know why. I just don't like happy. I really don't like happy ending movies all that much, unless it makes sense for the story. But if it feels forced, then I'm like, okay, I don't care about that. But in this, it's depressing. It makes sense. It's sad. After putting you through this emotional roller coaster, taking you through the grinder, it just it hits you hard by the end where it's depressing. And this movie it affected me, man. I walked out of the theater dazed and confused. I was like, what the fuck, dude? Like, I want to watch this movie again. This is a great movie. It's one of my favorite movies of 2020 so far. Yeah, man, besides just some minor problems I have with this is a really great experience in the movie theater for me. And I can't wait to watch this movie again. And it's on my 2020 top 10 favorite movies list so far. And that's all I have to say. So as always, thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time.